If you've been using Engage materials in your classroom, your students will now be well practiced at using scientific skills and knowing about the role of science in society. The next stage for them is to use these skills to carry out a project and do their own research into a topical issue. An Engage project will have a focus on contemporary unfinished science. This is the dilemma or issue the students will be investigating. It will approach scientific content starting from social and ethical impacts. Present science as a practice rather than a list of facts to be learnt. Students will see how knowledge is produced in real situations. It will use the media as a source of information, and therefore students will learn how to interpret and value scientific information coming through the media. It will teach about research institutions and the role of scientists. There is the option for you to make links with a real scientist and ask them to be involved with your project. Students will use different types of knowledge and expertise on top of scientific knowledge to research an issue and present their findings. An Engage project contains 3 stages. The first stage is set up the project. This is teacher-led and it contains 2 sections, Engage and Inquire. This is where you introduce the context and the dilemma, and students will devise their research questions. This section can be carried out at the start of a topic as an interesting context. The lessons you teach will form the scientific knowledge that will provide the background information to research the issue. Analyse and solve. This section is student-led, and students will research their sources to gather ideas. The final stage is called communicate. This is student-led, but it has a teacher introduction. This is where students will share their findings. All Engage materials start with a stimulus, and the projects are no different. The stimulus you use must hook the students and make them want to find out more. For example, a context for a project could be that electrical appliances are made of resources which are running out. The students will have to think about what could we do about this. Here is a possible stimulus. What do you think? Would it hook the students? This is better. It draws on something that is more relevant and interesting to students. Each project needs a good dilemma or question to research. This informs what the students will communicate at the end. It could be a view, argument, or they might create a product. It's a good idea to have an initial discussion on views, thoughts, and opinions at this point. This could be by taking a vote on opinions, or students could have a quick group discussion. When designing this stage, you need to think about how to hook the students, what a good dilemma or issue is, and how to use a discussion or an activity to get them thinking about the issue. This will get students thinking about their research questions. In the next stage, the students will think of their research questions that will help them investigate the issue. This is the Inquire stage, and here they will practice the scientific skill, devise questions. We've come up with 3 different categories of questions that can be used to investigate scientific issues. What are the scientific ideas behind this issue? What is the scientific evidence about the issue? And how will we decide what to do? When planning your own project, these categories are helpful in thinking about the kinds of questions students should be researching. Question 2 could be answered by an investigation where students gather their own primary data, or they can analyse secondary data from sources and possibly even from your scientist contact. Question 3 is looking more at the social and ethical issues. As an example, here are the questions that we came up with for the Exterminate project. The dilemma for the project is, should we exterminate mosquitoes that carry diseases using GM technology? These are the questions we thought were important that the students researched. When planning your own project, it's a good idea to do this at the start of your planning, as it will inform what sources you need to provide. It's vital that students come up with good research questions that will really help them understand the issue, but you don't want to tell them what these should be. It's up to them to devise their own questions. One way around this is to give them clear prompts. In Exterminate, we presented viewpoints to help them consider the issues of exterminating mosquitoes. We wrote viewpoints that matched the research questions that we had thought of. Other ideas to do this could be using a short film clip, a simulation, or a game. It is, however, a good idea to check the students' questions as they carry out this part of the project, and you may need to prompt them. You will have your list of questions that you think are important, so you might want to just nudge them into the correct direction. The KWHL grid is a useful tool in helping students record their questions and what they found out. They record their prior knowledge and then their research questions. Students may want to add more questions later on as their research progresses and they uncover more information, and this is fine. When designing this stage, think about the questions that need to be answered to be able to solve the issue, how to prompt the students to start thinking about these, and how you can help students to come up with suitable questions. Using a grid will really help your planning for this section. You can add the research questions that you came up with, and then think about what information the students will need in order to answer them. This will help you to plan the sources that you will supply the students with.